Hey guys, welcome back to Frostbite Fables. Thanks for hanging out again tonight. We've got 3 more true horror stories lined up while the rain falls in the background. Tonight's stories all deal with people being in places they thought were safe, like their own homes, only to realize someone was watching or trying to get inside. Get comfortable, turn the lights down, and let's get right into story number 1. For context, I'm a woman and I was 25 at the time, living with my housemate Tony and his 13-year-old son, Ben. I worked night shifts back then, so I'd usually sleep during the day while Tony was at work and Ben was at school. One afternoon, I woke up to my bedroom door slowly swinging open, stopping right at the halfway mark. I was still half asleep, and it took my brain a minute to process what was happening. Even though it was weird, I just assumed it was Tony coming home early from work. I called out his name, heard a faint noise somewhere in the hallway, and lazily got out of bed to check it out. No one was there. The house was completely empty. I was confused, but I figured I probably just didn't latch the door properly and a breeze blew it open, or maybe I had just dreamed it. I went back to sleep, but when everyone was home that afternoon, I mentioned it to Tony and Ben. That's when Ben realized his PlayStation was missing from his room. We looked around and found that the screen on his bedroom window had been forced open from the outside. Connecting the dots, I realized whoever broke in had opened my door, saw my feet on the bed, and immediately backed out of the house. We figured it was probably just some local teenager looking for a quick steal, so we filed a police report and didn't worry too much about it. A few days later, I had a day off during the week and went out to do some grocery shopping. When I got back home, the entire house was completely trashed. We had been properly robbed this time. I walked down the hall to my bedroom, and right there on the floor inside my doorway was the biggest butcher knife from our kitchen set. This time, the guy had broken in through the kitchen window, grabbed a weapon from the counter first thing, and went straight to my bedroom to check if I was sleeping in there again. When he saw I wasn't home, he dropped the knife by my door and went on to steal a bunch of our stuff. It completely terrified me. Why risk coming back to the exact same house just a few days later? Why grab a massive kitchen knife just to check my bedroom? Did he plan to use it if he found me asleep in bed again? We didn't even have expensive things to steal. We immediately installed security cameras all over the house, and thankfully, nothing ever happened after that. But the thought of what would have happened if I had been sleeping in that bed when he walked in with that knife still terrifies me. To the burglar who came back with a knife, let's never meet again. Story 2, The Camp in the Woods. I still remember this incredibly clearly, even though it happened over a decade ago. Strangely, everything that happened after it is kind of a blur, but I can picture every single detail leading up to this moment. I was around 10 or 11 years old at the time. I was at the beach with 2 of my friends, Daniel and Lydia, who were both 12. Lydia's mom had driven us there. She usually just relaxed and tanned on the sand while the 3 of us went off to do our own thing and have fun. We decided to play hide and seek around the beach, the nearby park, and the surrounding walking paths. Daniel was seeking and found me pretty quickly, but neither of us could find Lydia anywhere. We searched the entire beach, the playground, and all the nearby paths, but came up empty. Looking north, there were stairs leading up from the beach to a coastal path overlooking the ocean, cliffs, and a small patch of thick bushland in the middle. Daniel and I headed up the stairs, walked around the path, and decided to hop over a low fence into the trees to see if Lydia was hiding in there. About 5 minutes into walking through the brush, we stumbled across what looked like a hidden makeshift campsite. There was a filthy, worn-out tent, a sleeping bag hanging out of the entrance, an unlit campfire, and empty tin cans scattered all over the dirt. Both of us immediately felt this heavy, uneasy sensation. Something about the setup just felt completely wrong. Without saying a word, we turned around and started cutting back through the trees toward the stairs. Daniel was walking right behind me. Suddenly, in the most stern, serious voice I had ever heard from him, Daniel just said, "Run." I didn't ask questions, and I didn't look back. I just sprinted. Daniel stayed right on my heels the whole time. Looking back, he was definitely faster than me, but he stayed behind me the entire way. I honestly think he was making sure I didn't fall behind or get left exposed. We reached the 4-foot fence, cleared it in one jump, and the second our feet hit the ground on the other side, we turned around. Standing just inside the tree line was a man in his late 40s with a long, gray beard, a dirty beanie, and ragged clothes. In one hand, he was holding a massive knife. With his other hand, he was motioning for us to come back, quietly repeating, "Come here, come here." We ran the rest of the way down the path until we found Lydia and her mom. We told them what happened, but I honestly don't think anything came of it. It just became one of those horrifying experiences that none of us ever talked about again. I lost touch with Daniel after moving to a different state years later, but lately, I think about that day a lot. I still wonder what Daniel saw behind us before he yelled at me to run. All I know is that if he hadn't been there with me, I might not be here today telling this story. So, to the man waiting in the trees with a knife, let's never meet again. And now for tonight's last story, The Landlord. When I first moved out of my parents' house, I took over a lease for a studio apartment from my friend Claire, who was moving away. It was basically a converted loft above a garage, and my house key was literally just a garage door remote. The rent was unbelievably cheap, so I thought I was getting a massive deal. The landlord, John, was a bit odd from the start. Claire told me he used to be in the military overseas, and he just had this strange vibe about him. He talked a lot and was always showing up. He'd frequently just be standing in the garage downstairs when I got home from work, ready to talk my ear off for an hour. After my first week living there, I looked up at the ceiling and noticed security cameras mounted directly above my bed. If they were there when I moved in, I completely missed them. I immediately contacted John about it. He claimed they were just part of an old security system he hadn't set up yet, and insisted they weren't even plugged in. I didn't buy it for a second. I tried to keep things light and jokingly asked if we could take them down because they were creeping me out, and he agreed to remove them. But for the rest of my time there, I acted like there were hidden cameras everywhere, just in case. Living there was exhausting. John would show up at all hours of the day to use the garage. I'd get woken up at 8 a.m. on a Sunday to the sound of my front door opening downstairs, hearing someone using power tools without knowing who it was unless I poked my head down the access ladder. The final straw happened over a weekend when I went to stay at my boyfriend's place. When I came back on Sunday night, it was obvious someone had been staying in my apartment while I was gone. My bed was totally disheveled, and there were short black hair clippings all over my white pillow, like someone had just gotten a haircut or shaved their head and laid down. In the bathroom, my bath towel and floor mat were still damp. The absolute grossest part was my toothbrush. I am meticulous about dental hygiene. I always make sure my toothbrush is completely clean and standing upright. But it was lying flat on the edge of the sink in a puddle of water, covered in dried toothpaste remnants. Someone had literally used my personal toothbrush and barely even rinsed it off. I moved out shortly after that. Until the day I left, I barely slept a wink, sleeping every night holding a heavy wooden baseball bat like a teddy bear. So to my former landlord John, let's never meet again. And that wraps up the stories for tonight. If these tales brought a chill to your night, please leave a like, subscribe to Frostbite Fables, and drop a comment letting me know which story hit the hardest for you. Turn off your lights, lock your doors, and try to survive the night. I'll see you in the next one.